our clients were getting a completely different customer experience. They were used to talking with Nicole and getting this experience, but now suddenly they're calling a team member from Caleb's office and getting a completely different experience.
We're just hiring based upon quality people.
You hire for attitude, you train for skills, period.
We were going to go to activity-based tracking and not necessarily worry about results anymore. And it's really turned things around for us.
We have employees in Washington and Idaho. We used to have an employee in California. We have an employee in Michigan. So we are kind of all over the place.
And I think that's one of the places where partnership benefits people is if you've got other people that have different thought processes and ways that they look at things, it probably flattens the learning curve a little bit too.
Our hires, 90% of them were all from current employees that referred themselves to us.
Right. We send out emails and we want to know exactly what do you expect in terms of pay? What do you need in terms of pay? We talk about hours. We talk about working remotely. We don't just tell them the good, we tell them the bad.
One of the lines that I use when I'm interviewing somebody and making them their offer is, I'm happy to make you an offer for the last job you'll ever need, period.
And they come in and they have, their backpack. We use Macs, right? AirPods. They have their favorite candy, a card, a gift card. We really try to make a connection like right away. That's super important.
I said this today, all the hires and fires we've had over the last 2 years come from our core values.
We ask them to send us a video of themselves telling us why they think they would be good for the position.
Even in the middle market, the majority of our meetings now, our first appointments are not in person anymore.
We don't care what you're doing as long as it's not time sensitive. But here's the expectation, get it done.
VA companies in the insurance industry are a dime a dozen. Like, they're all over the place. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And how in the world can you sell if you don't have help in your agency? You can't. You can't sell, you can't service, but we are in an epidemic right now in our industry where you just can't find help. But I've got good news for you, because I found 3 dudes through conversation that have solved this problem for their agency. And that's why we're going to have them on the podcast to chat about it today. You hear so much buzz about people using VAs and sourcing VAs and everything else. But what about the homegrown talent, people? We got to get people from the USA to make dollars in the USA too. And I know that there's a subset of you listening right now that will never bring a foreign domiciled VA into your agency for whatever the reason, whether it be cybersecurity, whether it be control, or the fact you just want somebody in an office that you can look over and look at and make eye contact with to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Doesn't matter. We're going to talk to you about how these guys have gone through all kinds of things that have taught them lessons, how they solved the problems that they've solved, and then ultimately maybe figure out a way for a path forward for agencies like yours down the road to employ some of the same tactics that these fellas have done. So I have the team from Heritage with me, Caleb Walker, Jeromy Huerta, and Michael Overstreet. And that's who we're going to talk to today. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, David?
What's up?
So before we get too cranked up, I know Michael's been on the podcast. I know Jeremy's been on the podcast. I don't remember if I've ever even had you on yet, Caleb.
No,
So
I would avoid it like the plague.
You can start then. You could give everybody kind of the overview of who you are, and then you can sit back and you can just make sure that the other guys say what they're supposed to, which I kind of figure is your role to a certain degree anyhow.
Yeah, so I get on and I say, you know what, Jeromy would best describe that. Jeromy, what do you have to say?
Man, a few words, Caleb Walker.
Few, but they're very important. So, I mean, to bring us together, David, we met at some convention, what is it, 2019 marketing convention?
Well, Jeromy, we met at BrainShare in St. Petersburg, Florida at the Don Cesar back in 2019, in October of 2019. And you and I actually skipped some of BrainShare and sat in the area where everybody ate food and had a conversation for an hour and a half. I'm glad at least it made an impact on one of us.
Yes, that was me for sure. So I remember that, just drilling you with questions. But I think just a few months before that is when we met Caleb. We were at a marketing event up in Northern California, And we all just kind of, we kicked it off. Young families, younger agency owners, similar in marketing strategies, the way we ran it. And then when we came back, we just, we started talking almost like what, guys? Like weekly, and then it became every day. And it's almost like we were working each other's agencies, just bouncing ideas off of one another. And then fast forward it to just over 2 years ago. It's been a lot of pain and headache, so it might seem like 5 years for Caleb, but just over 2 years ago, we decided to merge and bring all our agencies together. And in the conversations we had to you, that's what's kind of led us up to, talking to you today and what we've kind of figured out in building, a remote agency that basically
so talk
we are
a little
now.
bit about that, though. I mean, it's one thing for you guys to talk about synergies and getting together, but there's some unique things about your agency that I think lend to credibility in the discussion today, because you're not by each other. Like, I don't know, you specifically, Jeromy, if you're still splitting your time between Arizona and Washington as much as you used to be, but I mean, I know Caleb's in Missouri. I know Michael's in Arizona. So your agency covers a pretty big footprint. It's not like you guys just met, merged, and all started going to the office together every day.
Right. So it's true. Not only are we in 3 different states, and Jeromy, he bails on Arizona when it's super hot in the summer and goes up to Washington, right? But the majority of the time he's in Arizona. But not only are we 3 in different states, but we have employees in different states. We have employees in Washington and Idaho. We used to have an employee in California. We have an employee in Michigan. So we are kind of all over the place. Utah as well, which leads into this discussion today. It wasn't easy, right? I always use the analogy, we burned the house down and built it all back up from scratch again. It has not been an easy process if you talk about merging agencies, that's a process in and of itself, but doing so virtually, even more so. So we've made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of things.
Well, merging agencies and merging personalities at the same time too, right? Because I mean, it's like the old adage, it's not an old adage. It's just a thought process that I came up with. Who am I kidding? But I mean, it's like when you get married, right? You get married, you live with your wife for a year. And after a year, it's kind of like, now I understand why people might live together for a little bit before they get married. Not that I condone that in any way, shape, or form, but it's like, you learn a lot. Once you're married, you learn a lot. You may not necessarily know that before you're married. So you guys got married, you burnt the house down. It's like, you don't really have much of a choice but to build it back and figure it out.
Well, how many employees do we have left from when we merged? 1?
2. I think we have 2 employees left. Yep. And we have 13 employees. So we've had quite the turnover. And again, that's led to our learning, making mistakes and learning.
So what caused the turnover? What, when you talk about that, in fact, you burnt the house down, obviously you guys are looking at tech stack. You're looking at markets that you have access to, all of the things that you would normally do when you're bringing 3 agencies together, but you're bringing 3 cultures together, different people completely. And you guys are very complementary in terms of your skill sets and how you interact. So, I mean, from a team dynamic standpoint, the 3 of y'all are probably one of the most cohesive teams of agency owners that I've talked with, of people who have partners in agencies. So feather in your hat for that. But what happened? You merged the agencies. You only got 2 people left. How'd we get here?
Well, Michael and I talked about it today. Michael talked about the first thing we did was sat down and went through a VTO. We're big EOS guys, traction guys. So one of our first things was putting our vision on paper, putting goals on paper, putting our core values on paper. And I can tell you that all of the hires and fires, I said this today, all the hires and fires we've had over the last 2 years come from our core values, directly from them. So that was the big thing for us, so we could all stay on the same page when we first started to go through that process.
How hard was it for the 3 of you to come to agreement on what the core values of the company needed to be?
It was very hard. And that's the biggest thing before we merged. A lot of people, you might have been the only one we talked to you about a little bit that recommended it was smart. Most people say, don't do it. You don't want partners. But one thing that was common amongst all of us, and you've talked to me before, I love sports, is we just wanted to win, right? So when I knew I'm going to battle with two other partners that want to win, to me, they didn't have to tell me, we're going to do whatever it takes to get there, meaning we're going to continually improve, right? So as we had that foundation, we established core values. It was based on how do we get better every day, right? How do we become the best? And how do we develop these values that will lead us that way, but also portray that to our team members that we're going to bring on in this journey with us.
So for the benefit of the people who don't know the intricate details of what you guys have been through, give us some examples of core values that you think are important for the agency.
Yeah, so I'll list off our four core values. They're all C, so it's easy to remember. There's compete, which goes to what Jeromy just said, right? That was Jeremy's favorite. We got to compete every day, come to work trying to win. There's compassion. We're compassionate with our own employees, own team members, and with our clients. There's, what is it? Consistency. We do the same thing consistently every day. And then there's clarity. We offer clarity within our agency and to our employee or our clients.
So when you go through and you look at your team and you're comparing them to your core values, and I'm setting the table here for the solution to the problem, but I mean, how much of this was self-selection, that when you've defined who you were, what your values were going to be, that some of the people are like, yep, I'm out. This is not what it was like last week when I was at the other place, versus how many people did you have to actually go through like a corrective action plan and say, listen, here's your first verbal, here's your written. We're not following the things that we need to do, because I've never really been through that process before. I have no real view on what it would look like, other than I'm kind of the person that if I'm going to do something and if I were to put the core values in place, yesterday doesn't matter anymore. Like this is what we're doing moving forward, and I'm not going to deviate from that. And I think that's where I would have a lot of issues, because right now, like in any other business, people are always going to push to see what they can get away with, what they can't. Not necessarily even in an intentional way, but I'll get this policy change request done Monday. It's not like it's a big deal, and the next thing you know, it gets set off for 2 weeks. It never happens, and now you have an issue, right? But I'm interested in when you decided your core values, when you communicated that to your team, was it something where you've had to manage the turnover issue, or was it something where people just basically said, you know what? Great for you guys that you have core values. This isn't who I am. This isn't what I decided I was going to do. It's different. I'm out.
So I think they evolved, and they evolved over time. When we came together, we didn't have those core values. So when Michael said we burnt the house down, literally we did. We had staff and we had mapped out the roles. Everything looked great. We're going to hit the ground running. And when we came together, we realized some of those people didn't fit. So over I don't know, you guys correct me, 12, 18 month span, I don't know how many people we let go or work themselves out, but we hired 8 to 9 brand new people because it naturally gravitated towards those core values and them fitting within that, if that makes sense.
No, I think that does make sense. So you burn the house down, you come up with the operating structure, values being part of it. Like I said, I'm sure tech stack, policies and procedures, all of the stuff that you have to wade through. What was that like? I mean, I can only imagine. I know what it's like with one person, and I feel like it's probably a heck of a lot quicker because I don't have to come to consensus and I can just make my decisions and move on. That had to be a new dynamic for you as well. But what did that look like before you got to the point where you started rebuilding?
That's a good
Caleb,
question.
almost pulling the escape clause.
Yeah.
But besides that, it was a lot of uncertainty. There wasn't a lot of clarity, right? We didn't have clarity in our day-to-day. We didn't have clarity in our full purpose. We didn't have clarity in the direction we were going, just from my standpoint. That's why we selected that as one of our core values. I'll let Michael give his input. But for me, we didn't have clarity as an organization. So it was a lot of confusion, which leads to a lot of frustration.
Right. And it was a lot of trial and error as well, right? Like being remote, being virtual, not sitting in the same office every day as Caleb and Jeromy. It's not easy to figure these things out. And so it does become a lot of trial and error. Caleb and I came up with multiple processes that we thought would be great, on paper. Over video call, it was great. We thought this was going to be awesome. And then we implement it, and our employees are just upset. They're frustrated. They're inefficient. And Caleb and I are sitting here. I'm sitting here in my home office thinking everything's going good. But little do I know, our employees are ready to pull their hair out.
So you guys are in 3 different states some of the time, 2 different states the majority of the time. How does Caleb staff his agency in Missouri the way that you're staffing your agencies in Arizona and maintain? Because I'm a big common practice person. If there's one thing Target drilled into my head, it's that everything in life should have a trifold brochure that tells you exactly how to do it so that everybody does everything exactly the same. And that was the beauty of my job when I was with them. It didn't matter if you were in Minneapolis or Miami. If I walked into your location at 2:00 in the morning and you were in the middle of the replenishment process, I should be able to walk right to where you should be at 2:00 in the morning, because they did a very good job of optimizing processes, training, communicating, and then holding people accountable to them. You guys are 3 new partners that are used to having 3 separate cultures, and now you're going to go out and recruit people to staff your operation. How did you do that?
So I'll speak from, I had an employee, and I'll kind of speak on this experience. I was a smaller agency. I was a smaller agency between all 3 of us. And I had a very laid back culture, right? There was me and 2 other employees. When we merged, like Jeromy said, everything looked great on paper. We thought we were going to hit the ground running. Didn't work out that way. This certain team member, they wanted to keep coming back to me. They didn't like the managers that have been placed upon them, right? Like suddenly now she's not reporting directly to me. Instead, she's reporting to other managers who she's not comfortable with. We think we have all the processes set, but there's so many small things that you don't even think about that started to come into play, to where one, employees, team members from my office would do one thing, team members from Caleb's would do another. And so it was just causing so much confusion between all of us. And to your point, our clients were getting a completely different customer experience. They were used to talking with Nicole and getting this experience, but now suddenly they're calling a team member from Caleb's office and getting a completely different experience.
Yep. I think that's probably a huge obstacle to overcome, right? Because here's my problem. I know how things should happen, but I'm not a granular dude. Like, I'm a big picture guy, and I can look at stuff and know, like, even with our own renewal process, this is something we're going through in the agency right now. We built it in HubSpot 4 years ago, but I want to go back and make sure that the life cycle of an account, where all the automations and everything we have in place, matches what it should look like today versus what it looked like 4 years ago. I could get up in the morning, tell myself, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to hammer out that life cycle approach today to our account. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to think through it. And I'm going to probably miss 2/3 of what I need to miss, because I just can't focus. Like, just because of my ADHD, I cannot focus to the level I need to focus to get to every single little step to build a policy and procedures manual. I literally have to have my team help me do it, because I have people on my team who can think that way. And I can sort of oversee the process, but I can't be the one to necessarily always come up with the process. So I would have been dead in the water right there unless I had partners that could help me go through and figure that stuff out, because I know, to your point, Michael, I would have eventually figured it out, but it would have been 5 years from now after I made how many mistakes to finally figure out the right way to do it. And I think that's one of the places where partnership benefits people, is if you've got other people that have different thought processes and ways that they look at things, it probably flattens the learning curve a little bit too. Because I think it's important for everybody listening to know, like, these guys didn't do this 10 years ago. Like, this is something that has happened in the last couple of years, and I would imagine still constantly evolving.
Oh, for sure.
Jeromy says all the time, we don't have egos. We just want to win. So that's the part you have to have. If any of us had an ego, we probably would have broken up after 6 months. But Clarity is the big thing. So as Jeromy said, we struggle with clarity the first 12 months, especially the last 6 months. Clarity and simplicity is where we have shifted our mindset, and that's helped a lot. And that's in every aspect of the business. Michael and I, like he mentioned, had all these grand processes, plans. I mean, we use so many different pieces of technology that we thought were amazing, and we correct each other quickly. Like again, there's no ego. If this is not working, whoever came up with the idea, it doesn't matter. We're moving on to something different, which is frustrating to employees too. But I think that we have tried to build a culture that they understand that we're doing these things as much for our clients. We're doing it for them too. Like we want to make their life easier, and I think they believe that today. But it can get frustrating, especially because we've changed a lot on a daily basis sometimes over the last 2 years.
And David, I was gonna say that process Michael talked about, that's what pushed us to creating those core values. And we said, here's how we're going to operate. And then from there, and this is part of the reason why we're selling or sharing this journey, is we decided, okay, we want people in our organization that are going to buy into this, that love those core values, that emulate that. We don't care from that point on if they were here before or not. We don't care moving forward if they have experience or not. We're just hiring based upon quality people, right? And that's part of when we talk to you, sharing this message is, I think that's an untapped market. I think people don't know how to really do that right. And I think the licensing in our industry that's required probably makes people a little afraid of hiring outside or hiring people without experience, right? But that's where the light kind of turned on. We're like, we're going to establish who we are, and either you're on board or not, right? And then we move forward with those guidelines.
Well, and hiring remote employees, you have to focus on that, because if they can't be remote to start with, then they're never going to assimilate to what we're trying to do. So,
yeah, I think, I read, this is be a great read for you guys if you've not read it, the book Nuts, about the founding and growth of Southwest Airlines when Herb Kelleher was the CEO. And I mean, we're going back to my college days that I read that book. But one of the things that always stuck with me from that book was, you hire for attitude, you train for skills, period. And I mean, I think you could take attitude out and replace it with values if it's core values. So you hire for the values. Basically, it's you hire for the quality of the person, for lack of a better way to describe it. You can train anybody on insurance. You can train anybody how to issue a certificate. You can train anybody how to add a vehicle, a driver, kill a policy, whatever, but you can't change who they are. Exactly. And to me, that's always the most important. And I've even joked about it. We may never sell a single policy. We may go up in flames, but we're going to have a great time doing it because we all get along. We all share the same vision, the same values and everything. And it's truly a blast to come to work and do that. But I agree with that completely. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark. I mean, in my experience, and I've been hiring and firing people for a long time now, 30 years. But I look back and I can't think of a single time in my entire time in leadership, management, whatever, where I had to terminate somebody that they didn't know it was coming, or that I had to terminate somebody that I should have seen was going to happen before I ever hired them. And, it goes back to be slow to hire, quick to fire, whatever else. But I mean, even when you have a position where it's 90-day probationary period and you got people waiting until like day 85 to make their decision, 30 days in, this person wasn't going to work, and I think that we're so from the staffing portion of the agency world, I think people are afraid to let people go sometimes just because a body's better than nothing in their mind, when in reality, that body's probably doing you far more damage than they are doing good. You just don't realize it yet.
Oh, for sure.
It's funny you say that, David, because I was just speaking with one of our managers today about this specific experience that we had in this regard. And yeah, we said, we thought it was going to be a lot more difficult, but actually it's been great since that person is no longer with us. We're actually more efficient. People are actually happier. So you're right. And I'll just say this, that's one thing that Jeromy and Caleb have taught me. If anybody knows my personality, you would probably guess I'm slow to fire people. It's just not up my alley to do so. But once you have those core values dialed in and your values dialed in, it actually becomes a lot easier because you can tell right
Now he's mean. Now he's mean. And everybody fears him.
But you can tell right away either yes, you're fitting in or no, you're not fitting in. And it makes that process a lot easier. Maybe not the actual process of firing, but coming to that conclusion, it's a lot easier once you have those core values dialed in.
So let's talk about this for a second, because I think this is an important part of the process too. We're talking as if these people are already employed and we're making decisions based on how they're assimilating the culture, but you're doing some things on the front end before you ever even bring them into the operation, before you ever even give them an offer. Talk a little bit about what that looks like. What's the interview process look like? What kind of profiles or things are you talking about? I don't know that it's as detailed as Billy Wagner's 21-step approach to hiring a new team member, but
Definitely not.
God love him. I love Billy to death, man. But we probably would never be able to be partners, and that's okay, right? Because I'm more along the lines of, I'm gonna look at your resume, and if you worked for ADP for 5 years and you didn't get fired and you didn't quit, I'm just gonna probably offer you a job because I know you can work someplace that doesn't take care of you, and you can knock on doors, and I'll take my chances. Billy, I would drive him absolutely nuts. But I do think, and I'm part of that's tongue in cheek, but part of it's not. Like, you're either a producer or you're not in my world. So I do honestly think that way to a certain degree. But talk a little bit about like what that process looks like. You get applications in, or you might even want to talk a little bit about how you recruit, or if you don't, that's fine too. But talk a little bit about before they ever come in the door.
Good question. So when we established those values, and we don't try to keep going back to that, but it was really important, right? And our team understood that. They knew, they had a strong sense of what we're about and understanding our purpose. After we had a couple hires, our next four or five guys, right, were all referred to us by existing employees, right? So once that was established, the hiring, which was crazy, got a lot easier. Now, we did use some third-party sources like Ideal Traits. I don't know if we ran any ads, posting stuff on Facebook, but our hires, 90% of them were all from current employees that referred themselves to us. So, it already had someone coming to us, and, if they're on our team, they know what to expect. They know who they're going to be working with. They know if, they're going to work well with us. So that was pretty easy, right? A lot of the vetting was done. When we talk about interviewing people, it's probably a bit different. Lots of times, Michael and I are jumping on the first call, and we're like, hey, this is going to be completely different than what you've experienced. I tell them I have self-diagnosed ADD, so they can say something, and I might go off on some tangent. But our goal at first, we just want to talk to them as a person. We want to talk to them. We want to get to know them. We want to know what's important to them, their family, what drives them. A lot of the questions are based upon our core values and trying to get a feel if we feel like they already have those as a value in their life, or if they're going to have an issue, growing in those as they come on with us.
I'm going to edit this awkward silence out because I'm trying to think of what my next question is.
And we have other steps if you want us to go over that.
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you just talk through your steps?
Yeah. So I'll let Michael, because I don't want to talk too much about it, go over our next steps. But that first initial call, it's just getting a good feeling, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times they get taken aback because we don't talk much about insurance at all. And it's just Jeromy and I, it's like a conversation, right? It's like small talk, but we get into a good conversation. So we feel like they know us and we know them by the end of it. And then Jeromy has a series of emails that, we in the insurance industry, I think Jeromy and I were talking about this earlier, people give and take and copy from everybody. So it's a mixture. Grant Botma has a great book. He has a great process. We've used a lot from him. And then also Billy Wagner, obviously we're not doing what he's doing, but he has some good input, and we've probably taken a little bit from there as well. But we send out a series of emails. If we talk about clarity, right, we send out emails and we want to know exactly what do you expect in terms of pay? What do you need in terms of pay? We talk about hours. We talk about working remotely. We don't just tell them the good, we tell them the bad, right? That's something else. And once we have further conversations with them, we let them know all the bad. Like, hey, here's why you may not want the job. Insurance industry is hard. If your job is to answer phones, guess what? You may get yelled at every now and again. It's not a fun job 24/7. So to stick with our core value of clarity, we let them know all of that. And then one thing that we asked them to do, and I think this did come from Grant, we asked them to send us a video of themselves telling us why they think they would be good for the position. It's awkward and it's embarrassing for a lot of people to do that. It's frightening to do a video, but they do a video and they send it to us. And then I'll just
But you know what, man? If they do the video, that's huge kudos to them. And from my perspective, even if they look horribly awkward on video or whatever, they get more credibility from me for pushing the boundaries and actually getting outside their comfort zone than somebody like us who, gets on video all the time. Michael, I'm not going to speak for Caleb and Jeromy, but you and I do video all the time. It's nothing to me. I don't even think about it anymore.
No. But for them, it's a big deal. And also being a virtual company, guess what? We're on video calls all the time. You have to be comfortable being on video and showing your face.
Well, and also, I'm not sure what your process is in the agency, but we use better proposals and we do video proposals for everything. So if you're not comfortable on video, it's going to probably be pretty tough for me to find a desk for you here. Not just producers, but even on the service side, because a lot of what we do is video specifically because that's the one way we can get human connection with our clients. When COVID came, it changed the game for a lot of stuff. Even in the middle market, the majority of our meetings now, our first appointments are not in person anymore. Our goal when we call and telemarket or we have our appointment setters call somebody is not for us to go show up and sit in your conference room for an hour. It's a 15 to 20-minute introductory call on Zoom, and you've got to be comfortable, in that environment and doing that. And so I think that's a good move, man. I think it's a really good, stage step for you to have people go through. But it's also probably one like that weeds people out. Because have you had anybody come back and say, I'm just not comfortable at all on video, so I'm going to go ahead and excuse myself?
And that happened just like a month ago, Jeromy?
We had one person, and that, we're like, yeah, I respect that. You're just not a good fit for us. Right.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And then I'll just finish this. The last part of the process before we officially decide to pull the trigger is we get our managers on there. We get other people that they'll be working with on there. And we have a multiple series of interviews with those people. And same thing, we're not grilling them on insurance knowledge. We're just talking, getting to know them and let our other team members sign off and say, yes, they fit culturally. We want them to be part of our organization.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot in retail where if people, I tried to let my team be involved as much as possible in the actual hiring process. And I did it for a couple of reasons. Number one, to develop them a little bit and help them get a skill set of interviewing and talking to people, because if they're ever going to move into management, that's something they're going to need. But then number two, I also wanted them to buy in. Like I was typically the last person to talk to somebody because usually it was somebody had a friend. I'm like, okay, bring them in and talk to the team lead or whoever else. But I would have everybody else talk to them. And by the time it got to me, it was literally just me signing off. I wanted them to be able to make the decision. Then I could also hold them accountable for it. So if 2 months in, they came back to me and said, oh, this person's terrible. They're not doing this. They're a nightmare to work with. I'm like, well, why'd you recommend them? I didn't interview this guy. You guys supposedly ran him through the ringer. I just empowered you to make the decision. Now, how are we going to get rid of him? Yeah. But if you include your team, it only takes one or two bad ones that they kind of let slip through the cracks after you involve them before they self-police, and they're going to purify every candidate before it ever even gets to the point where you're ready to make them an offer.
For sure. But I think it also gives the potential candidate, since we're working virtually, a chance to meet as many people on the team 100%. As possible. We tell them, hey, we want this to be a good fit for us, but we want it to be a good fit for you. And we usually tell them, like Michael said, all the bad things, because if we tell you all the good and 2 weeks, 4 weeks in, it's like you were sold on this great position. You're not going to want to be here. But if the first 2 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks are hell, you'll say, okay, it's going to get better. But they told me, I knew it was like this. There was those expectations, right? So having them be able to talk to other team members, people they'll be working with, and feeling comfortable, that is important, right? We always talk about in the insurance industry, the client experience, or just even out there, you know, in the retail world. But we really started evaluating as we hired virtually, you know, for these people, the team member experience, that potential employee's experience, right? And that goes into the interview process, looking at it from their standpoint and trying to make them feel as comfortable as possible. It's scary. You're living in Michigan, one owner's in Missouri, two are in Arizona. You never meet them and they're hiring you. You know, everything sounds great, but is it really great? Who are these other people? The owners are great. Is my direct manager going to be great? Are my coworkers going to be great? So we just like to open it up and have them experience that interaction with as many people as possible.
That way on day one, you come in feeling like you know everybody, right? Because it's not like you're in person. Day one in an in-person job, you show up and you meet the team and it's all this camaraderie and you're, you know, hey, good to meet you. You don't get that being virtual. So if you can come in first day on the job and you've already met almost everybody and had at least a half-hour long conversation with everybody, you feel a lot more comfortable going into your first day. It's a much better experience.
So you can finally get everybody, get them through the process. You make them an offer. They come on board. What does that look like? What's day one look like? When I'm a new remote employee. I'm coming to work for Heritage. What can I expect when I wake up and I shuffle over to my computer to work day one?
Well,
Might be
day
a whole
one
nother
now.
podcast.
What's
Day
that?
one now is not the same as day one before.
Yeah. I said that may be a whole nother podcast. Our onboarding process is pretty extensive.
Hit the high points, Michael.
Yeah, so depending on who they're going to be working with, there's a lot of shadowing going on, right? Almost like you would in a physical office. You're sitting there, you're watching them. So there's a lot of shadowing going on. With technology, we can do screen share, we can have them tap in and hear the phone, right? There's also training. We've come up, and this has evolved and changed over time, but there's training modules, almost to Billy Wagner's process, to where they get to go through and there's training. Here's how you do easy links. Here's how you operate on Teams. Here's how you do that. We've also created checklists, like when you log in, you need to do X, Y, and Z, right? The thing with working with virtual employees is we have to be extremely dialed in. We can't assume anything.
Well, you have to have that stuff accessible for them too. So like, when you're building this, what platform did you use to warehouse all the information?
We've experimented, trial and error with a number of different things. We're very heavy on Teams. And so that's where we house a lot of our stuff. We've started building out a playbook, which is actually just accessible on our website, to where they can go and get all the resources that they need for anything. Our processes, our scripts, everything is all there, easily accessible in one spot.
And I think, David, I'll go back, rewind it before they even start. We hired and we hired them from where they lived, right? But what we changed is, after our first couple hires, we flew them in, and we flew them in for a few days. One, so they get to meet us in person, which, you know, the walls go down, right? So you get real comfortable. As they come in, we talked about, you know, I talked about a few minutes ago, experience. So we have them, you know, Michael created a list. We find out their favorite candy, their favorite place to shop, their favorite drinks, all this stuff. And they come in and they have, you know, their backpack. We use Max, right? AirPods. They have their favorite candy, a card, a gift card. We really try to make a connection like right away. That's super important.
That is
so
what
before
I was
they ever
looking
start
for right there. I wanted to find out what you were doing to show them how you are different than where they likely have come from or have worked anywhere in the past. Because I've got to believe, man, like, you guys have way more experience than I do in hiring virtual team members that are actual employee team members. You got to come out of the box swinging, man, and make them understand how important they are, and just taking it to that extra level where like having their favorite candy and all that. So I do something similar. I even do it with our VAs when we bring them on. But number one, when you show up day one, your tech is ready to go, period. Like, I don't want you coming in and it's like, oh, well, let's go ahead. We'll get your laptop in process, or it's in process, or whatever else. No, when you come in day number one, your stuff is ready to go, period. And we're going to make sure you have company branded gear and all of the other stuff so that you're part of the team right out of the box. Then at the end of the first, and then also day number one, they're going to start on Monday sales and ops meeting. I'm going to bring in, catering and celebrate the fact we got a new team member. We all eat together, whatever else. At the end of that week, I make sure that they have a gift basket, depending on who they are, with probably a nice bottle of champagne or wine with a couple of wine glasses or champagne flutes, maybe some snacks or stuff around that, but then also a gift card for a couple $100 to go out and celebrate your first completed week with your significant other at the restaurant of your choice or whatever else, so that there's like an opening and a closing to week number one. After that, we have our scheduled trainings and stuff, but I think it's really, really important, man. I don't think a lot of companies, this isn't relegated to the insurance world by any stretch. I don't think a lot of companies do as good a job as they could of making people feel like they've made the right decision when they come in.
Exactly. You're spot on.
I'm glad Jeromy brought that up. And it's not only they don't show up to the office that first day, they show up to their hotel and check in, and we check in early and their bag is sitting there. So they walk in and that's the first thing they see, which is awesome. And, we have company swag and stuff. So it's cool. A few times we've had people show up to the office that next day wearing our swag, like wearing our heritage hat or whatever. And they just think it's the coolest thing ever.
And it's a cost, right? I mean, some people might say,
well, I was just getting ready to say, man, here's what I was going to say, because devil's advocate, I'm always constantly thinking of it. And I know that there's enough crotchety old agents out there that still have found their way to a podcast that they'll send me a message about this at some point. But you're not taking the cheap way out, but you're probably taking the lesser expensive way out, right? And what I mean by that is,
sure,
it costs you money to put them up in a hotel. It costs you money to fly them out. But it doesn't cost nearly as much as hiring the wrong person, having them work with you for 6 months, having to go through the process of losing clients as a result of their poor performance, losing them ultimately, and then having to turn around and do it all over again.
Yep.
One of the lines that I use when I'm interviewing somebody and making them their offer is, I'm happy to make you an offer for the last job you'll ever need. Period.
Love it.
I don't want them leaving.
Right.
I can invest heavily enough in the front end and in the training to where they don't want to go anywhere else ever again. I'm happy to spend that money, because ultimately it's lesser in the overall spend over the life cycle of that team member's career with me than it is if I'm constantly having to find somebody to replace.
Yep. And just to add to that, David, we don't just do that for them, but we will fly in their direct manager or other team members during that time too, right? Because once again, it's that connection, right? It's that first impression. How can they make that feel? If this person's managing them, right, and they met in person, they had a whole week to go out to dinner, to go to Top Golf, to hang out, that's a stronger connection, and there's a stronger bond there, which helps when they're on their own.
No, I agree completely.
And we have team members that reference back and say, yeah, I really like this person. I remember when, you all flew us out to Arizona and we hung out at Top Golf. We had a great time. And those connections, they hold for a long time. They hold for years plus, which is essential in the virtual environment.
So talk about this for a second, because you guys, there's VA companies in the insurance industry are a dime a dozen. Like, they're all over the place. I feel like if I left town for 2 weeks, I'd come back and 5 more people I know will have started a VA company. And so I say that because it's a way that a lot of people move to try and solve the problem, but they don't always get what they think they're getting. I think that the VA industry's not done a good job of preparing potential clients for what to expect. I think they overpromise what somebody's going to be like in terms of, training and skill set and all of that, versus, what you would get if you bring somebody in and you have hands-on and you run them through your own process, which my advice is always just treat a VA like you would anybody else, run them through your process regardless. But there's a reason why something triggered that you guys made the decision where we're not going to focus on the VA route, even though it's readily available at our fingertips. We know a bunch of people who have VA companies that we could probably source help from, but we would rather go this route and have domestic people who are remote. Why?
We'll let Caleb answer that.
Oh, Caleb, go ahead.
I don't think you want me to answer that. Well, the pendulum has shifted for us, right? We were all in. We had several VAs, but like you say, you continually run into problems. You realize that the cost versus efficiency doesn't match up always. And so our pendulum has come back. But for us, I think it's been a blessing because, remote employees for us, like true team members, was a solution. The other thing is we do have part-time people, but we've chosen those to be, and don't tell anybody this, our secret sauce. The stay-at-home mom, part-time, that wants to do processing work, that's the secret sauce. And that's really helped us be more efficient because, again, there's always going to be language barriers. There's always going to be cultural barriers. We just honestly just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
And one other thing to add, David, is we wanted to outline someone, whether they're part-time, they're a processor, they started as a bookkeeper, whatever, data entry, to see that there was room for growth, right? And if you have the best VA in the world, they can't grow and get licensed in your agency and become inside sales, or become an account manager. So we have, it's so funny on our conference call, like Caleb said, we have part-time moms. We have kids, we have babies, toddlers now on our agency meetings every week. But as their kids grow and they do something else, right? In fact, there's one, she started as a processor. She got licensed. Now she's an assistant commercial account manager working with our full-time commercial account manager. So we like the fact that if we have these people, they can advance within the company, and they weren't capped, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty valid point. I don't know how many people out there have even thought through that, because I think that right now it's so many people are so enamored with the fact that you can get VAs for what they perceive to be cheap. I would also like to run an actuarial study on that to find out if it really is saving a lot of money, right? So
yep.
I'm at a point now where, and I hate to have to be this way, but I'm at a point now with some of my VAs where I actually make them give me a timestamp of how long it took them to do specific tasks, so I could add up if I'm getting my money's worth by the end of the week. And like I had somebody, a couple of weeks back where I went in and this VA had worked like 2 3/4 hours worth of actual work product for the entire week, and I absolutely lost my mind. Because I knew there was a leak there, but where I lost my mind wasn't just in the fact I wasn't getting that return on my investment, but this person nonchalantly was willing to just basically tell me, no, I'm only working for you 2 hours and 45 minutes a week. And it's like, this stops like yesterday. So I put that person on a very short leash. I review, I go back to the leadership, and I'm like, this is why I have a problem with everything. And, it's interesting. I feel like there is a shift. I feel like, when I first got involved with some of the online groups for agents, because I was on an island for a long time, man. Like, I didn't know about IAOA or Insurance Soup or any of this stuff that was out there. I didn't have a clue.
Same.
But somebody put me in IAOA on Facebook. I went to Innovation and I start listening and I start watching. And if you go into these groups, and it's not specific to any one, I feel like they're all pretty much the same, but it's the same topics over and over again. VAs, AMS, CRM, it's in those kinds of things. And there was a period of time 2 or 3 years ago that I feel like agents were viewing having a VA almost as a rite of passage to so that you had a successful agency. Like there was a contest of how many VAs can I have or whatever. And so there was this massive influx. And then people realized, oh my gosh, this is so much cheaper than hiring domestic help. But if we were to go back and really look and see how many times are we going back to redo things, how much am I losing in efficiency? How much am I opening myself up to a cyber liability issue or something similar to that? You know, maybe that's not the best way to go. And I'm not advocating one way or the other for it, but I think that, you know, when you start really peeling it back, I don't know that VAs is the answer 100%. I think that there are plenty of highly qualified people that do want to grow. To your point, like stay-at-home moms are awesome, man. Like I haven't had the good fortune of finding a producer there yet, but from a support staff standpoint and wanting to come in and, you know, do account manager or CSR type worker things, dude, I could staff my whole agency from the Little League field without any problem at all, man. Because, you know, when on Ethan's first team he played on, 3 account managers right out of the box. They all 3 had kids. They worked for agencies, but now all of a sudden they can't. And I had one lady, and again, I'm interested in your philosophy here too, because I'm of the mindset that if the work gets done, I don't care when it gets done. If you want to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. It just better be done accurately and on time, or within reasonable time of when somebody expects it to be done. So I had just a crackerjack account manager that was probably an $80,000 to $90,000 a year employee that came into my office and worked for about half of what she could have gotten full time, because I was willing to let her work from 6:30 or 7 until 1:30 or 2 every day. I don't know what your office is like, but from 2 to 5, I'm not burning down the house with service requests or whatever. And this is somebody that it had been in the industry for well over probably 25 years. And I got her for a song, and she was absolutely perfect. She was an awesome account manager. She was great at teaching younger people, but nobody would give her a chance because they couldn't get it through their head. She had a limited availability. The only question I ask her is there a reason why that you can only work from 6:30 or 7 till 1:30 or 2? And she said, yes. She goes, I have 2 high school age daughters that are very involved in things at school. They both play volleyball. I have to get them to practice. I'm not going to miss their games. I want to make sure that I'm present at their mother. I will hire that person 10 out of 10 times if that's your reason. If you're
Absolutely.
saying, I will give you the best I can for the hours I'm available, but when I'm not here, I'm going to focus on something that I personally happen to think as an agency principal is the most important thing for all of us, you're going to get an offer from me 10 out of 10 times. So when you work remote, how much of a dynamic is that for you where you kind of juggle the workload because you're dealing with different time zones, you're dealing with different commitments? What's your philosophy there? Are you cool with just as long as the work gets done and it's done when it's supposed to, the rest of it doesn't matter? Do you have set schedules, or are there certain things that have timelines that they have to be done before the end of a shift? What does that look like?
I think it depends on the position, right? So we just hired a commercial lines manager, and she left a pretty big brokerage, right, Caleb? Well, they're a lot bigger than us. They're all across the country. She just wanted the flexibility. She took less money, and we said, hey, we don't care if you're leaving to pick up your kids. We don't care if you have to go to a game, right? We just need to get this stuff done. With sales, we're all inside sales. They have it easy. We just feed them leads, right? Those are set times. But I think to answer your question, we operate with a high level of compassion and caring and a high level of expectations, right? So depending on the position, we don't care what you're doing as long as it's not time sensitive. But here's the expectation, get it done. And we have, 2 other part-time stay-at-home moms that are like that. But I want to go back to what you said real quick about, are you getting the most bang for your buck with some of these VAs in that? They have the PER in the NBA that measures player efficiency rating, right? And back in the day, someone could be scoring 30 points a game, but their shooting percentage is horrible, and based upon the minutes they play, they're not that good. That's what we realized when we switched to this model is the hourly cost is less, but are we getting the most bang for the buck? Are they the most efficient there for 4 hours? And two of the best people I've had, and we kept them when we merged, was two bookkeepers. One's our accounting manager, and one's a gal that does books. I mean, they're just phenomenal, right? But they wanted flexibility, and they've been great for us. But we found that with account managers, we found that with processors, sales. That might change in time. All of our people are inside sales, but it doesn't really matter, but it's based upon the position. But I think what's important is that there's a high level of love and a high level of expectations.
And something we get better at every day, and we know that we're still deficient in, is developing KPIs that are very strategic to being remote, right? Jeromy and Michael made a decision earlier this year that we were going to go to activity-based tracking and not necessarily worry about results anymore. And it's really turned things around for us. So we track activity that will lead to results versus just the results. And it's helped us immensely.
Well, I mean, that's something that I say with producers all the time. It's like probably 5 times a day, is people need to learn to start managing the behavior and the activity instead of monitoring the results. You can only monitor results when it's done, right? But if you know what the behaviors are that are going to get you those results, or at least predict with relative accuracy you're going to get those results, then you're going to be in a much better position to manage the behavior. Like, I can tell you right now that if I have a producer that's making 100 dials and 30 marketing drops a week and not doing anything else, those behaviors, if they exhibit them consistently week after week after week, they're not going to help but be able to write business, because they're doing the things that are presenting opportunities to them. But if I have somebody that goes out and they work really hard and they, get an opportunity and then they stop and they work on that and they close it, now they have to start over again because they haven't been doing the same replicable behaviors. That's not somebody that's going to be very successful as a producer, because they're never going to maximize their ability to close and earn.
Yep.
And I kind of want to touch on what you said, David, and kind of bring this all back together as to why I think our message is valuable and what we've learned. So there's the VAs and then there's the traditional employees. We're kind of merging the two together and creating the best of both worlds. We talk about VAs and getting the best bang for your buck. And then we also talk about talent, finding the right talent. When we're virtual, our talent pool suddenly expands. And
that's what I was going to say, man. Like, you talk about getting the best person, but in reality, any of the 4 of us on this call, if we have an opening right now and all I'm going to pull from is the zip codes around my office, I might get the best person from around here, but I may not get the best person, right?
Exactly.
When you expand the boundaries and you don't necessarily worry about whether or not somebody's coming to physically work in your office or has to live within a certain proximity, you'll get the best person every single time as long as they get in front of you.
100%. And then on top of that, people go to the Philippines for VAs. Well, what's stopping us from going to Idaho or one of these states where the cost of living isn't so high? And so we can get the best talent also for the best price. And then on top of that, people won't demand as high of a salary if they can work from home, if they have the flexibility. So we're getting the right person and we're getting them at the right price. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
No, I agree with that completely. So what have we missed as we wrap up? What have we not talked about that we should?
Probably a laundry list of mistakes we've made that we could teach, but
we'll save that for another podcast if there's that many of them, because I think that's what people want to hear too. What are the boneheaded things any of the 4 of us have done so that people realize that we're all dealing with the same stuff?
And that's the thing, is I say it's the best of both worlds, but it's also really hard to pull off and to organize, right? And I feel like we've finally been able to, we're not there yet, but we've finally been able to at least see the light at the end of the tunnel to where we can pull this off and be successful.
Hey, we're trying hard when we're playing charades on our team meeting.
Oh, man. Well, listen, guys, we've been going about an hour. We could probably go for 4 more if I allowed that to happen, but it is Friday and I'm on Eastern time. I've got a few more things to wrap up before I leave, but we will definitely have you back soon, because I feel like the conversation can continue to go. And maybe what we do is we bring you back and record for an hour and break it up into 4 episodes, the shop talk, and trickle it out over the course of a month or whatever, and be thinking about that. Think about maybe it's even looking at the 4 core values that you have and doing a shop talk on each one of those values and how that translates into the team that you're building or whatever else. But as far as today goes, I say we wrap it up and call it an episode. I appreciate you guys coming on, and love watching what you're building out there, man. It's crazy to see that this whole thing, like, and again, like pre-COVID, would this have really happened? I don't know, man. I think everybody's so focused on all the stuff that COVID did that was negative that, believe it or not, as bad as a pandemic is, I always say through great adversity, you can find great opportunity if you know where to look for it. And it did shift the way people think enough to where we're open-minded enough now to consider remote help, consider remote meetings and all of those things. And I'm excited to see what the next iteration of all of it looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us on. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Absolutely,
Thanks, David.
fellas. I appreciate you taking the time to jump on, and we will catch you soon.
Thanks,
See
David.
ya.